Welcome back to the channel, everyone. My name is Paul, and you're watching Roads and Rails Hobbies. Today's video, folks, I will be taking a look at the new airbrush kit from a company called Gocheer. This is another one of those kits from Amazon that has everything in it that you need. A little airbrush, a little compressor. Great for doing your little projects like airbrushing model cars, cakes, nails, all kinds of different things. This company did send this to me for free for my honest review. And as always, folks, my review is exactly that. I want to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about everything I review and let you decide whether this kit is right for you or not. So without further ado, let's open up the box and see what all is inside. As we're opening this box up, one of the first things you will come across is a warranty certificate for Gocheer. That is pretty awesome. I've reviewed several of these kits on my channel, and very few, if any, if I can remember, actually offer a warranty for the product. That gives me a little bit more peace of mind. If they give you a warranty, that should mean they stand behind their product, right? So if you have an issue, well, you have a warranty. I like that. The next thing you're going to see is the actual instruction manual itself. And I'm going to tell you something about this instruction manual. I freaking love it because it's simple. It has a listing of the airbrush, the parts that come in the kit, how to work it, just a little troubleshooting guide, a cleaning guide, if you will, and that's it. I have other manuals from these other kits that are multiple pages and they want to teach you how to airbrush. I don't want that in this type of a kit. I just want to know how to work it. If I'm going to learn airbrush, I'm going to go on YouTube and look up somebody else's channel of how to do what I want to do. I don't need it in here. To me, having all that stuff in an instruction manual for an airbrush is just too convoluted and too confusing, especially for new beginner airbrush users. This is fantastic. Simple. Love it. Next thing, the air compressor itself. And yes, this is a plastic bodied air compressor. Most of them are. You don't need to have a fancy metal bodied air compressor. It still works. I like this air compressor because, again, it is also very simple. You have your power button and you have your air pressure setting button. This kit comes with 3 air pressure settings. And I do like the fact that they just list them as low, medium, and high. Now, I know we all love to know exactly what the PSI we are shooting at, but this is good for something such as this because I can't guarantee and I can't promise, this is just me theorizing here, but when you're dealing with this type of an air compressor, I bet you I could get 3 of these and line them up side by side, and I'm going to get 3 slightly different air pressure readings from, the same setting on all 3 air compressors. I can't imagine that they're super duper accurate. So low, medium, high, perfect for what this kit is. I absolutely love that. Don't need to make it too fancy. You also get your wall wart to run, your air compressor. And let's check out the airbrush here real quick. Now, here is, now again, like I said, I already looked at this real quick, and when I first grabbed this airbrush, I went, something's missing. The air body valve assembly, like, wow, this airbrush is completely useless without that. What the heck? Then I noticed that it came attached to the air hose itself. Not a big deal at all, really. Especially if you've airbrushed before, you know that this belongs on the airbrush body and it should stay on the airbrush body. As a matter of fact, when I take this kit downstairs, I'm going to get a little wrench and tighten this up nice and tight so it doesn't come off again. And now we do have a working airbrush. All I have to say is, when you're packing these, pay a little closer attention, right? Okay, enough of that. Airbrush itself. It's an airbrush. Is it a super fancy airbrush like some I have? Of course not. For the price point of this kit, which I believe is, I have it right next to me right now. Hold on. As of right now, as of the release of this video, this airbrush kit is $59.99 on Amazon, which is about the average price for these types of kits. Don't expect to have a $200 airbrush and a $60 airbrush kit, right? It feels good. It feels fine. Again, it does not feel like a high-end one, but don't expect that again. Action feels good. It's nice and firm for the air valve. So it's got good spring action here. This does come with a preset handle, which does work, which is pretty nice. The lid for the air cup does not come off, which I absolutely love because I hate when I'm airbrushing with a kit like this and you're doing some moving and the lid pops off. I'm not the neatest airbrusher in the world, and I end up spilling paint. Or I'm kind of dumb and I'll set it down sometimes and it'll fall out of the holder and I'll spill paint. Yes, I do that. This lid does not come off because its lid is actually threaded. That is good and bad. I prefer a press-on lid, but again, for this price point, I have never had a really good fitted press-on lid for these more inexpensive airbrushes. So this is a good compromise. The only drawback that I can see potentially is cleaning paint out of these threads here in the cup. And the cup, well, actually the cup's a little rough inside. It's not perfectly smooth. When we get to cleaning, we'll check that out too. I don't know if there'll be any issues with that or not. But hey, you know, it is what it is. You're not going to spill paint at least, right? And of course, this cup does come off. So you can get in here and clean, and there are 2 other larger size cups in this kit as well that will attach to this. And I forgot to mention one of the most important things about this kit. The best part about this whole kit is for that price point, you're not getting 1 airbrush. You're basically getting 3 airbrushes because this comes with 3 different needle and tip sizes. It comes with a 0.2, which is considered a micron. It's very, very fine. A 0.3, which is in this airbrush body right now, which is pretty much your standard everyday needle size, and a 0.5, which is quite a bit larger. And that's awesome. Why? Because it opens up a vast array of different types of painting and different types of material that you can run through your airbrush. When we get to the actual practical usage of this part of this video, I will show you what I'm talking about when it comes to the different viscosities and materials. Anyways, we'll get to that in just a little bit. So, airbrush is cool. I did notice one thing. It's not branded. I thought for sure I would have seen some branding on this airbrush. Most of these kits usually come with branding. I don't know why they didn't do it. But hey, it's not a big deal. It's, you know, it's an airbrush, right? It works as long as it works, right? Then you get your air hose. Does it even say how long this air hose is? It doesn't even list the air hose in the manual. All right, we'll check this out myself. I will do it the old-fashioned chicken wing sideways, the chicken wing way by opening my arms up. And it is a bit longer than my wing spread here, so I'm going to say it's about 5.5, maybe 6 feet. And this is a nice braided hose. It feels very, very robust. I'm glad they didn't cheap out and put a rubber hose in there. So many kits do that. And I just, for the little extra bit of money, it makes a world of difference. Use braided hose like this. Fantastic. Other things in the kit. Like I mentioned a moment ago, you get 2 different paint cup sizes. These come in a lot of kits. I don't use them often, but I have used them a few times doing large projects, so it's very nice to have. You also get a little baggie here. It's looks like a cleaning kit. You get some brushes, some extra O-rings, a wrench, which I don't know what we'd use the wrench for. Maybe to take the air valve body assembly apart, not sure. I'd never ever hardly ever do that. And a pipette. Still kind of cool. Oh, this is nice. This is a water oil separator if you've never used an airbrush, and basically what that does is this end attaches to the bottom of your airbrush. The other end attaches to your air hose, which attaches to your air compressor, and that keeps water or oil from getting into your paint or into your airbrush. I do not think, however, that this is super necessary for this type of air compressor because there's no reservoir in here. There's no tank. So you're not going to get the condensation like you would in a large air compressor where you will get water in them, because I own multiple ones and I have to drain them every year. But the nice thing about this is it makes an awesome handle. Gives you a little bit more stability, a little more grip space, depending on how you want to hold your airbrush and use it. That is very nice. And to be quite honest, these are not super cheap. I think they're right around $5 for one of these. So that's a nice little bonus to have in here. We also get a little airbrush holder that goes on the side of your compressor like that, and show your airbrush in there. That's nice. We get another cleaning tool for your airbrush. This is just a little paint pick, if you will. I'll be very careful. These are super pointy and sharp. You will stab yourself and bleed, trust you me. I don't use one of these very often, but if you have that stubborn little piece of paint stuck somewhere, that's great to have. And you get your other two needle sizes. As I mentioned, the 0.3 is already installed in the airbrush. So this is your 0.2 and your 0.5. And along with your needles, you need other needle tip sets. The first one here is your 0.5. It's upside down. It's in the little container here. And it fell over there, whatever. And next one is the other, what the heck? 0.2, but it's empty. And, you know, as you can see, that they put the label over the lid to make it sealed. They probably do that so these don't, you know, come out. I never made it in there. I'm like, oh, come on, really, guys? And then I found them in the bottom of the box. And here they are. You know, this goes in, you know, here like this. That goes on into your airbrush. Your needle goes through there, all that good stuff. To me, honestly, the fact that this made it in the box, that means somebody knew it wasn't in here. Take 5 seconds and go grab one that's in here and give this to somebody else to put it in here for the next kit or whatever. To me, that's kind of lazy. Sorry, I don't mean to be rude, Gocheer, but seriously, it's kind of lazy. Another really kind of weird thing about these is, like I mentioned, they have the label over the crack where you would separate the lid from the actual body. And again, probably did it so this doesn't pop open and fall out. Doesn't matter, it's still in the box anyways. I need to stop, I'm sorry. But once I cut this or rip this open to get this out, I'm ruining that label. So now I'm going to take a Sharpie and write on here, you know, 0.5. I'm going to take a Sharpie right here, 0.2, so I know which one is which. Really? Put that on the main body. If you're so worried about these opening up, use a piece of cellophane tape or something. Don't use a label. Okay, enough ranting about that. Not a big deal, as long as everything works, right? So, I'll bump the camera and make everybody sick. Sorry. Again, here we go. You got your little compressor and your little holder for your airbrush. And just so you see how that goes in. Bam, right there. So it's all set to go. That's pretty slick. And you have your airbrush. You have your wall wart. You have your other two cup sizes for your paint cups. You have your water oil separator. Cleaning tools while everything rolls around. I'm going to throw that over here because nobody cares about cleaning tools right now. We have our different size needle and tip sets and our air hose. Here is everything you need to start airbrushing minus paint. So this is a great option if you're just starting out. This is a great option if you are going off to college or have a small apartment or somewhere where you don't have a lot of space for a big noisy air compressor and all kinds of stuff like that. This is a great option if you're just a part-time car modeler and you're tired of spending, you know, $8-10 for a can of paint that you're going to use one freaking time and have to go get a different color can. If you know, that can get really expensive. This will save you a lot of money in the long run if you just, you know, buy airbrush paints and use an airbrush if you're painting model cars and stuff. And that brings us to the end of the unboxing portion of this video. And it went 13 minutes, which is quite long. That's kind of crazy. Next, we are going to take this down to my workshop, as I had mentioned, and we're going to run it through its paces. But unlike what I've done in the past and what a lot of other reviewers do, I am not going to paint the back of plastic spoons, and I am not going to paint on some paper. Everybody can do that, and any airbrush is going to work for that, right? What I'm going to do is, well, I have a project I need to finish up for a buddy of mine, and that project is this. It's a little 32 floored Hot Wheels that I'm going to shoot a candy paint job on. Candies are not the easiest things in the world to work with. And to be quite honest, I am not the best painter in the world. I really rely on quality tools to help me with my painting. So we're going to see just we're going to see just how good of a paint job I can get with this inexpensive airbrush kit. And I guess, well, that will be the proof in the pudding. That will speak to all. And don't worry, I'm not going to run you through another hour of how to paint. We're just going to shoot different colors on here. I'm going to talk about the different viscosities of the materials I'm using in conjunction with the different size needles, so you can see how this kind of a kit will work for, well, multiple situations, something hopefully that you might need in your workshop or in your hobby. So let's head downstairs and let's paint this little car. One thing I noticed when hooking up this airbrush to use on our little project is if you use the water and oil separator on this airbrush, this little airbrush holder on this air compressor becomes useless, because now it's too long, especially if I were to attach the air hose. It's like such. That's really not going to work at all. That kind of sucks. Now, I don't have a problem with that because I have a cleaning pot, which you should get if you're going to be airbrushing, and these fit in there without any issues whatsoever. If, however, you wanted to use this airbrush just as it is and use that holder, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to use the oil and water separator if you wanted to use this holder, which is, again, not a big deal. It's not a big deal because with an air compressor like this, having that water oil separator is really not that necessary, because there's no tank in here. It's tankless, and as you can see, it fits just fine when that's not on. And this is exactly how we're going to run it without it. Okay, now let's get ready to actually paint something. In front of us is what I will be using today to paint this little Hot Wheels. We will be starting with our base sealer. This is a silver sealer, or sealer silver, and it has a little bit of a flake in it itself. We will also be using this Hot Rod Sparkle White. This is all flake in here. And we will also be using a Grabber Orange candy paint. And with that, I will be using a 40-30 Balancing Clear, because this is a pigment, not an actual paint. So you have to have a carrier to get it to stick to your project. So we're going to be using a Balancing Clear. This is exactly what it says, balancing. It's not shiny, it's not matte, it's just there. It's just a Balancing Clear. And we will be finishing off the car with our high gloss clear coat. This is a 4053. This is all Creatix brand products. And to thin any of these paints, I will be using their 4011 reducer. Just so you know, this is my intended steps. For our silver sealer, our sealer silver, I will be using the 0.3 millimeter needle and tip set for that. I will be using the 0.5 for this flake, this white Hot Rod Sparkle White flake, because it's a little bit of a thicker flake, so I want to use a 0.5 for this. We'll be going back to the 0.3 for our candy. This stuff is both relatively thin. This candy, like I said, is a pigment, so it's extreme. It's almost like water. So when I mix it with this kind of reduces the Balancing Clear itself. So I will be using the 0.3 for this, and back to the 0.5 for the high gloss clear coat. This is a bit of a thick product, and then I will be reducing again everything with the 4011. I like using the 0.5 for this because it gives me a little bit more product coming out, and it makes it easier to coat the car. Okay, enough said. Now, I will not be speaking through this, and as I had mentioned previously, this will not be a painting tutorial. It's going to be a lot of fast forwards and a lot of cutscenes. I just want to see what this airbrush kit can do and show you, hey, is it worth buying to paint your models with? If it comes out good, then yes, right? If it comes out bad, then maybe I just suck at painting. I don't know, but let's find out real quick. So next time you hear from me, this car will be painted a nice Grabber Orange. Well, let me fix the camera here just a little bit. You saw the quick fast forward of me painting that little die-cast car. So before I show you the final result that I got with this Gocheer airbrush kit, let me show you what I started with. This is the 32 Ford from Hot Wheels. At least I think it's a 32 Ford. Yeah, it is a 32 Ford. Look at that, I got it right. So anyways, this is the Hot Wheels version. This is how it comes from the factory, and it is pretty cool in its own right. This is what I did using this Gocheer airbrush kit. And I must say, I like that a lot better. Now, the paint job is good. The body work, I could have done just a little bit more on because I didn't get it sanded down just quite as well as I would have liked. And there's a little spot right there where, unfortunately, must have been some oil from my skin that got on here. And it did not, well, the paint didn't stick too good to that portion. All my fault. But as you can see, hopefully, this airbrush worked. It did a really good job for the most part. So with that being said, let's talk about this airbrush kit real quick, and I'm going to give you my final thoughts of how well it worked and how well it may not have worked painting this little die-cast car. As I showed you at the very beginning of this review, you've got an airbrush here with 3 different needle and tip sizes that can do a wide range of paint jobs, from 0.2, which is extremely fine, to 0.3, which is standard, to 0.5, which is not huge, but it's a pretty good size needle and tip set combo. And you have all the accessories. You've got your airbrush hose, you have a water oil separator, cleaning tools, and of course you have your little air compressor. Here's what I like about this kit. Number one, for the price point, you get an airbrush with 3 different needle and tip sizes. Now folks, Gocheer, it seems to me, I'm not, I don't know what they're thinking because they just sent to me a checkout. They don't really tell me their behind backstory of why they did this, but the price point for this kit is in line with most of these little airbrush kits that only have 1 tip set, 1 needle in it. And they're doing it with 3. So I'm sure they had to cut corners somewhere. And as far as I can tell, those corners were cut a little bit on the airbrush. It works. It works just fine. Does it feel fantastic? I've had better airbrushes, but then again, I've had worse airbrushes. The trigger is a little stiff. I will say that. That's really it. The trigger's a little stiff. And the paint cup not being a press fit lid and not being mirror polished inside is just something that I would like to have seen, but I get it. They're trying to get the most bang for the buck and try to get something really great to you, the consumer. So they had to make allowances in certain areas, but it works. The one thing that I was slightly disappointed in was the actual compressor itself. For the way I paint, it's not quite enough pressure. For most people, it would probably do just fine. But I'm painting flake, I'm painting a very thick clear coat for my models, and it struggled a little bit for painting those items. It actually clogged up the airbrush just a bit. And I know it's the compressor, not the airbrush, because when I was doing my final clear coat and I started getting a little bit of clogging, and keep in mind though, I was only using the 0.3. I should have been using the 0.5, but I really wanted to push this airbrush and this compressor combination to see what I could do, because most people are used to using a 0.3 millimeter needle and tip set. Again, it was clogging a little bit using the supplied air compressor. But for my last few coats, I took this airbrush over to my main compressor, my shop compressor. I hooked it up, and this thing rocked. I mean, it spit out the clear coat like there's no tomorrow, running at my normal 25 psi, which I run all my airbrushes at, and it worked just like my other airbrushes. So kudos. This airbrush, not the prettiest one on the market, but it does work with enough air pressure. Again, with that being said, when I was using the candy paint, which is the orange for this car, that's a very, very thin paint. And I was using the 0.3 again for that. And I didn't have hardly any issues with that at all. I had one issue with it. It was my fault. I don't know if you're used to airbrush painting, don't know anything about it, but when you're airbrush painting, it's always air on, paint, paint off, then air off. Well, one time I want air on, paint, and it's like go. When you do that, sometimes you get a little bit of paint kind of clogging the tip up, which I did. and I had to clear the tip. That was the only time I had an issue using this with the supplied air compressor. Let me remind you, that was with the supplied air compressor when I was running the candy paints. When I was using the 0.5 millimeter needle and tip set, and I was using the metal flake through this, which, folks, the metal flake that I use is from Createx, and they suggest using a 0.8 or larger needle and tip size, and I was using a 0.5, and yes, it did it, but it did struggle a little bit, and I did have a little bit of clogging with that. Again, this is not designed, even a 0.5 is not designed to push flake, but it still did it. If the only true gripe that I really have is I wish that they had a little bit more powerful air compressor for this kit. If that were the case, this kit would be gold, and it really would. But again, for the price point, get it just for the airbrush. Chuck the air compressor, especially if you have one. If you've been looking at getting an airbrush that had multiple tip size, most of them are in the price point of this entire kit just for an airbrush with nothing else. So you get this airbrush and you get all the accessories, a new air hose, cleaning tools, new water, oil separator. I mean, you get a whole bunch of stuff for the same amount of money you would buy just an airbrush by itself with nothing, with interchangeable needle and tip sets, that is. I like this kit. Like I said, I wish the air compressor had just a little more oomph to it, but other than that, it really works very well. It is very quiet. If you are going to be using thinner paints like most airbrush artists do, you're not going to have any issues with this setup. Unfortunately, if you're going to start pushing some thicker stuff, the airbrush will do it. It just, the compressor is going to struggle a little bit. And that's about it in a nutshell, folks. I mean, again, like I said at the beginning of this little painting, the proof is in the pudding, and as hopefully you can see again, I mean, that's a very nice paint job for a, you know, $60-ish airbrush kit. And guys, I'm not a professional. I mean, this is just a hobby for me. So I think that came out pretty stinking good. So go check it out. Again, I will put links in the description below to this airbrush kit and to all of the other accessories I use, the paints that I use. Well, it's basically it, the airbrush kit and the paints that I use. But guys, go check them out. Again, I mean, I really do like this airbrush, and I think with more use, this spring in here, well, actually it's the spring in the valve body here, I think it'll loosen up a little bit, get a little bit lighter. As of right now, like I said, it's just a little bit stiff. But you know what? I'd rather it be stiff and work than be loose and not work, right? I mean, it works pretty good. So hope you guys enjoyed this little review I did here. I know it's a little bit longer than other reviews, but like I had mentioned, I really wanted to put this airbrush kit to the test by actually using it on a project, and that is this project right here, and it actually worked very, very well. So with that being said, yet again, as always, folks, God bless, take care, and thank you for spending your time with me. See you next time.